There's probably nothing quicker to keep you single than holding on to a belief like leaning back, or like that men should do this, should do that. Nothing's going to keep you single longer than those beliefs. Let's talk about the dangers of
leaning back in a relationship.
Some people are going to hate us for this, but
that's okay. I already wrote an article on this about 2.5 years ago. It was titled "The 9 Dangers of Leaning Back."
It's very common to hear the term leaning back, especially if you have read a lot about, I guess, dating advice for women. That term gets thrown around quite a little bit, and different people have different ideas of what it is, but overall you'll hear that term again and again. It's not something that we necessarily agree with. It's something that we feel like can be very dangerous if you adopt that mindset, because the essence of it, I mean, if you want to talk about the history of where that term came from,
I do. Okay.
The essence of it is basically to pull back and to be more passive, to be on the receiving end, and sort of fits in with the idea that women should receive, you should sit back, you should let the man do everything. It sort of fits within that whole dialogue.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to Rory Ray.
Yeah, okay. So a little bit of the history of the idea, of the concept of leaning back. So you guys may know or may not know, we've been doing this since 2009. We've seen a lot of people come and go from this dating advice market. People giving advice come and gone. We've seen ideas come and gone. We've seen some ideas that stick. Leaning back has been one of those ideas that have stuck, just stuck there. Not necessarily a bad thing, but the original proponent of the idea was someone by the name of Rory Ray. I think Rory Ray was a pioneer, and I think the other guy whose name we won't mention is great. But we just want you to know where and who this leaning back idea came from. Now, of course, maybe Rory Ray appropriated it from some older dating advice books. Who knows? But in the internet world, Rory Ray was the big pioneer of this idea. As time went on, more and more people came into the market.
And
after us.
She certified coaches.
Yes, Rory Ray creates certified coaches who love her work, who believe in her work, and who have carried on the torch, so to speak.
And therefore the terms and terminologies, etc., the phrases got passed on, and more people started using it because it's kind of a catchy thing to lean back. Oh yeah,
it kind of makes sense when you hear it, especially if you have been chasing men.
Yes.
It would make sense to people who have been working over-functioning with men. So there's the people who Rory Ray has created as certified coaches, and then there's the people who haven't been certified by Rory Ray, who are nothing but copycats of Rory Ray's idea of leaning back. Harsh, but true. And I've been around long enough to see the difference. There are certified coaches, there are people who wanted to just seem like an expert. And so it's a great idea to take the terms to look like an expert, even though they have no idea where it came from, but it sounds good. So what's happened to the idea is that it's no longer just what Rory Ray said it was. It's turned into all sorts of interesting kinds of things.
It's morphed into this mutated.
In some circles, there's the 80-20 rule, where men are supposed to initiate 80% of the time, while women initiate only 20% of the time. So all of these things tie into it. And some people say, look, you can't invite a man out to a concert. Don't do that. And whilst I understand why people would say that, because I think maybe they had a client who was doing too much to try and get love from a man, I understand. But that doesn't mean you should never invite a man to a concert at all.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so I think that's the history. History done.
So why is it so dangerous?
Why is it so dangerous? Why don't you go ahead?
So here's the thing. As a response to chasing men too much, you have to correct your behavior, I guess. And I can understand why it is valuable in that specific context, in that moment, to stop yourself from chasing a man too much. And there's a value in that. However, the goal is never to lean back as a rule. When you lean back as a rule, you're going to appear disinterested. Good men are just going to go, all right, see you later, because she's not interested. They're going to get completely the wrong messages, and you're going to let good men just slip through your fingers again and again.
You might get, I want to put in here, sorry to interrupt, just that you might get some certain types of men who will really respond to it. Not just initially, but they'll continue responding to it because they're saying, oh, she's pulling back, well, I better go forward. It's just a push and pull effect where you pull back and he's like, oh, well, what's happened? So he comes to you. But first of all, that doesn't indicate anything about the value of your connection with him. And second of all, like David's saying, let's make a distinguishment. Is that even a word? Let's distinguish between good men and the men you don't want. Because some of the most desperate men will do anything to keep you around.
Some men will keep chasing you, and that's a really big red flag. That's something that you want to watch out for. That's not a good thing. Right? Ultimately, you want to be attuned and you want to build the connection and the attraction. That's what matters. By just leaning back, you are basically telling yourself, I'm not going to be attuned. I don't want to be attuned. I'm going to follow this rule. I'm going to disconnect myself, and hopefully the man will somehow initiate. And sometimes he will, but that's not a good thing necessarily, because that's not about the connection. You're not actively building the connection. It's a form of mind playing, mind games, playing mind games.
Yep.
And the more mind games you play, the more the other person or the other man on the other end will feel like, hey, I've got to play games too. And the more you encourage that kind of culture behavior from the men that you speak to.
Yeah. And I mean, let's look at the reason why leaning back could potentially maybe be helpful. So we want to make sure that you know that we're not completely ruling out the value of leaning back, because almost every idea has a certain value in a certain context.
Exactly.
Those people who really need leaning back are perhaps just those people who need the message initially because they just keep trying to blindly chase a man, and they don't actually feel worthy of love inside, and they haven't even dealt with that. They're not even aware of it. So to hear, you just need to lean back, it's like, okay, well, yeah, why not? That's going to work. What I'm doing isn't working, so why don't I do that? But the thing is, a lot of people don't just use it to recalibrate. They don't use it to just process themselves. They use it continuously all the time because they think that should be the man's job to just chase. But just because a man chases you doesn't mean he values you. Doesn't mean you have a connection for real. So you want to be able to lean back just initially in a way to just help yourself recalibrate. And then maybe it's time to, instead of relying on leaning back, to actually try to engage, to learn, to make mistakes with men. And that's also one reason why we are teaching, well, David mainly is teaching high value banter, because it helps you connect with the right men. It helps you learn to create attraction and practice connecting, practice attracting, practice conversing. We don't want to stay stuck at this thing.
It's a very surface level truth.
Yeah.
To get yourself out of blindly chasing, fair enough. Next step. There's something more to it than that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, I'll give you an analogy. It's like you're driving your car and you're starting to notice that your car is always leaning to the left. You also have to pull the steering wheel to the right. You don't know exactly what is going on, but you know that that's what you have to do in order to drive. So you give yourself this rule that you have to pull your steering wheel to the right. You turn it to the right in order to go straight, right? But that's not the issue here. The deeper issue is not the steering wheel. The deeper issue is perhaps that the wheels are misaligned. And if you don't fix the root cause, which is the misalignment of the wheels, you're going to cause much bigger issues down the track. The tires will wear down a lot quicker. You can have you can have all sorts of issues with your tires, wheels, and axles as well. And that's a massive mechanical issue for the car. So the rule is not to go, I need to do this when I drive. The rule, what you got to do is figure out what is causing this, fix the root issue, and so that you don't have to think about, where do I have to turn the steering wheel? You just go, that's where I want to go, and go there. That's the goal. The goal here is attraction, connection. The goal here is not to arbitrarily lean back. So it's an arbitrary rule that I understand. Sometimes you want to swing the pendulum because you've been chasing and you've been heartbroken because you've blindly chased. But just to swing the pendulum doesn't make the situation better. It's not the calibrated response. It's like saying, hey, put a Band-Aid on your car and everything will be okay. Or if the engine light comes on, you just smash the light and it's gone.
Yeah.
That's not fixing anything. That is putting a Band-Aid on the real problem, hoping that it will go away, but it will never go away. You cannot ever attract a mediocre, even just a mediocre relationship into your life if you're not attuned, if you don't have some ways of connecting on a deeper level. You're just not going to attract that.
Yeah, and if you don't have the courage and the wherewithal to respond in real time and allow yourself to kind of make mistakes and calibrate.
If you can't be attuned, you're not going to make anything work at all.
That's right.
If you stick to the arbitrary rule of leaning back, then what a smart man would do, they'll see that and go, she's not interested, I'll move on.
That's right, yeah.
Just like that.
And so many men have actually...
And smart men are going to be more attuned.
Yeah. Because don't forget, men themselves are still human. They're not here just to be your toy. They're not there to just be at your beck and call and just... They're human too. They want to be in an actual relationship with you. They want to have a connection. So always responding to a woman who's leaning back, pulling back, only initiating 20% of the time, it's kind of like trying to have... We had this analogy previously with the 80-20 rule, where you're trying to play a tennis match with someone and they only hit the ball back 2 out of 10 times. How can you create a game? How can you create a connection? Or volleys. How can you grow beyond your static state?
I do understand that when you've been single for a long time, you tend to buy into ideas that may seem crazy just because you haven't had that experience. You haven't had
Yes, exactly, yeah.
those points of reference in your life. But let me tell you, it's not going to work. There's no way that that's going to work. And even if you somehow just basically tripped and fell into a relationship, that's not going to last, and it's going to feel horrible. And it's going to be based on playing mind games and power trips.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's not where you want a relationship to be based on at all. So yeah, again, if you need to swing the pendulum, I understand, but there's always look for deeper levels of truth. And that is attraction, connection matters, and that's basically everything that matters when it comes to intimate relationships, when it comes to attraction, when it comes to just meeting men and establishing that chemistry. And unless you can be attuned and know how to go bounce back and forth, then that's the goal. That's really what you need to get good at. It's a skill. It's a skill that you need to go out and practice. And if you haven't had a lot of practice, let me tell you, you're going to suck at it. I can tell you right now, you're going to suck at it.
And that is okay.
You're going to misinterpret the man's actions, his texts, his messages, etc. That's normal. That's normal. But know that every time you practice and you get yourself into that position, you're getting that practice, you're getting better, and that is success in itself. And you're not going to you're not going to be able to run a marathon overnight.
No.
But you can get better and get more experience, and because of that, you start to go, oh, these things make sense now. Oh, I see what I should have done better. I've learned my lessons. I know exactly how to communicate better in the future. That is success.
Yeah.
That is real success, because that is long lasting. That is something that's going to carry forward for the rest of your life.
Because you've earned it.
Yeah, because you've earned that. So it's very, very important to not just get stuck on this one thing, because at the end of the day, I can tell you, there's probably nothing quicker to keep you single than holding on to a belief like leaning back, or like that men should do this, should do that. Nothing's going to keep you single longer than those beliefs. So if you don't know what to do, okay, good. At least you can admit that and you know where you're starting from.
Yeah.
Now, go out there, speak to people, speak to men, message them. Go on, do internet dating for the sake of learning. Don't do it for the sake of relating or trying to start a relationship. Do it for the sake of learning, and learn how men communicate, learn how you should communicate with men, learn what works, learn what doesn't work, learn what makes them laugh, learn what makes them smile, makes them more interested in the conversation.
Yeah, and learn how you can just connect on a human level.
Yeah.
And also, because men are, I know people disagree with us on this, but I do believe men are a different species. We are human, which means men and women are similar in many, many aspects. But in the way that we see certain parts of the world, and especially in the way that we approach dating and relationships, we are different. It's dictated by our biology. I know a lot of the times that women tend to err on the side of wanting to communicate more seriously and go deeper, but a lot of the times men aren't ready for that yet. And so what we teach, the high value banter, is that it gives you a way to meet them where they're at, to kind of help them open up. And what banter does is that it creates an opening for deeper conversation without you having to be like forcing it before it's really there.
Yeah.
So that's why practice is so important.
At the end of the day, know that men and women have different reproductive agendas. Women have this intuitive need to want a relationship, want to be secure in that relationship. Fair enough. Women are the ones bearing the babies, and they need that. So, but your desire to have a relationship is, in essence, by default, a value-taking thing, because you want to take that resource from a high-value man, right?
Of course.
And just as a man's desire to sex anyone,
have sex with basically anyone as quickly as possible.
that's value-taking for most women.
Of course.
So
yeah.
nothing's going to work if you're just there trying to take your type of value and he's just there trying to take his type of value.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get past this difference in reproductive agendas unless you can find that middle ground. That middle ground is the banter, it's the attraction, is the connection, is the dance between the different agendas. That's the only way to go about it. Otherwise, it would just not work. It would not work. The best you could hope for would then be a relationship based on power trips, control, and a trade, and that would just feel horrible. So the only way to go about it is to find that middle ground. The middle ground in which you go, okay, I can acknowledge that I want a certain type of value. No need to be ashamed of it, but you don't want to lead with that value-taking attitude or value-extracting mindset. And you also want to acknowledge that men and their biology states, they have completely different desires. And it's not wrong, it's just how it is. So if you can acknowledge both sides of the equation, both sides of the conversation, you can then...
Which a lot of women are really not willing to do, but...
Yeah,
We're trying to encourage women to do so.
well, I think it's so important.
Yeah,
I think,
of course. It's the one thing that gave me all the power that I have now interrupted you again.
No.
It's just, it's important to say, before I understood men, I was full of anxiety and fear. It's only after I decided to go to their page, understand the masculine perspective, that I suddenly felt free again. Because I had made the decision to have the courage. I had given myself the chance to learn how they view the world. And when you understand that, it gives you your power back.
You start to see what value is in their eyes.
That's right. And it's not too much different to going for a job, like applying for a job. You go in, everyone knows you want the job, you want to make money, you want some financial security, you want to provide for yourself and your family if you have one. Are you going to go and say, I want the job, I need the job, you give me the job, this is what I need? No, the best thing to do, the most empowering thing you could do is look at that company, study it, see what that company is trying to achieve, see how you can help that company, and then
lead with that.
Yes.
Exactly. You always want to lead with your value.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important to understand what value is from the masculine perspective. It's not the same value as what women perceive. That's why when men in any circumstance, in online dating, especially when they lead with wanting a commitment relationship, that is so unnatural and so screams just red flag. Someone's trying to scam you, because that is not value to men.
No.
On a default level.
Yeah.
That is not value to men on a default. So he would only say that he wants a commitment, he's ready for a commitment, that he's ready for a relationship. He's only saying that to pander to your needs and wants.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that same script, you hear that over and over. And the reason why is it works. It works in tricking a small percentage of women into believing it and perhaps handing over thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
That's how online dating scams work. And it works because there's a small percentage of women who get sucked into that. They go, oh, I want a relationship, they're offering a relationship, that's for me.
Yeah.
Right? But that's because they don't understand the masculine perspective and what value is to them.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And this goes back to what I was saying before about taking your power back by understanding them. If I was teaching men, 100%, I would tell them, understand women.
Yeah, the first step, I guess, in having more value and being more high value is to understand what value is to the opposite sex.
Yeah.
That I think is so important. So, yeah.
I was going to say, you were mentioning before about, or we were both mentioning about how practicing and making mistakes and going in and talking to people. I just wanted to say, we both made so many mistakes when we first got together. And I actually remember in the very early stages of myself thinking, we had phones back then, obviously, and text messaging. And I remember at one stage being like, no, I need to have more control here. I need to pull back. I need to just not look so desperate and not do this and not do that. But I was never fulfilled doing it. Like, I noticed that pulling back made me just obsess even more. And it didn't change a thing about the quality of our connection or our relationship. But I'm just saying, I've been there. I know what it's like to have that fear. Because as a woman, in the initial stages of any relationship, the first 3, 6, 9, 12, even 18 months, you're still kind of working out where you guys stand. You're still proving your value. You're still building that trust. And so there will be stages where seems like he's pulling away, or that he's just not giving you what you want. And so you will sometimes be in fear. And those kinds of approaches, like leaning back or getting more control, will feel like a good option. But our belief is that the best way to get more influence or control, if you like that word better, is to actually raise your skills, practice your skills, raise your skills, improve your skills, and actually engage. We've both made lots of mistakes, and it's much better to go out there and make the mistakes as hard as it can be than it is to just be passive, because
you learn nothing.
What on earth are you achieving?
You learn nothing.
Other than if you're using it to kind of allow yourself to have the space to process.
To me, it feels like when you pull back for the sake of pulling back, it becomes a zero-sum game, which means somebody wins, somebody loses.
Yeah.
It's a power struggle.
Yeah.
And that's not at all what you want a relationship to be.
No wonder it didn't feel right to me then.
It's a power struggle.
Like,
so that means
zero-sum games I don't like them that much.
Yeah, there's no real winner. If one person in a relationship wins and the other person loses, you're not the winner.
Great?
You're not the winner. You're the loser.
You're the loser.
Exactly, because you're in that relationship.
You're the
So in a relationship, it's not a zero-sum game. there is no one winner, one loser. You're either both winners or both losers. You get to choose.
So true. Because if you both get divorced, you both get divorced.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just one person divorcing the other.
Well, one person could get more of the money, I guess. Winning.
I didn't think about that.
Some people have that strategy, I guess. Anyhow, we're not talking to those kinds of people.
No, we're not.
Don't be passive. That's the worst thing you could possibly be in any areas of your life.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
You owe it to yourself to practice,
it's
try
hard.
to engage.
It's hard.
And if you can't, then maybe see a therapist and process. If you don't have anyone to help you, at least process things. And then that might make you feel a bit more free and supported to go out there and start connecting.
Look,
don't get stuck.
Here's what I recommend. If you don't know what to do, if you're confused, go out there and speak to every single person you can possibly speak to. Just speak to them. And don't just speak to them like you're trying to be polite. Speak to them as real human beings. See what lights them up. See if you can change their emotional quality for a moment. See if you can make them smile. See if you can say something that would impact them or make their day or something that would make them giggle.
Can I just honour you for a moment?
Yeah.
Because I have known you for a very long time and I've seen him do this himself. He walks the talk, and the fact that he's done this himself is the reason why, partly the reason, not the only reason, why he's been able to create this amazing program, High Value Banter. High Value Banter is a free class, but the High Value Banter method that he came up with and that he created is now helping so many women online get dates quickly with the great men there. And also, by the way, it's empowering so many women. It's because he went out there and he learned. And it's, if he'd stayed passive and just or afraid, he never would have come up with solutions to help. Not just,
That's something that I do all the time.
Yeah.
Something for me. It's not that I want to learn. It's something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I enjoy speaking to people and seeing if I can light them up or just brighten their day for just for a moment.
Yeah, and even if you don't like to go out there and be funny or try and make someone laugh, you don't have to do that. You just go out there and you interact with different people and feel their energy and just try and bounce back with them.
It's not about being clever, by the way.
No.
Some people think, that's about being clever.
Yeah.
No, it's not about being clever. It's about connecting. And I could use humor to connect. I can use some dark humor. I can use all sorts of different types of humor or gestures or something to break through and see who that person is deep down inside and connect with that instead of just being the surface selves or the shell versions of ourselves and try and connect on that level. But the point of the matter is, leaning back, it's such a surface truth that it is not going to get you very far at all. The real goal here, the real goal in any relationship is attraction and connection. Emotional attraction, emotional connection. That is it. And you can't establish any of these two unless you are attuned, unless you can really feel where the other person is at. And you can't do that unless you have the skill of bouncing back and forth. So if you haven't attended my High Value Banter class, highly recommend it, highvaluebanter.com. And we talk about this so much, but we have so many programs as well that teach you exactly what value is to men, to the masculine perspective. Go check them out. I mean, they've changed so many lives.
Yeah.
So many lives. We just got a message yesterday, I think, in our alumni group of a lady who's going to get married in October, I believe. And she basically said, she studied Understanding Men and Becoming One Only, and she said, those programs change your life.
Her and her man were having a discussion in the car, and she asked him something like, so what's maybe different from all the other women? And her man gave her wording, almost word for word, what we had taught about becoming a man's one and only. And that's not an accident.
So anyhow, this discussion has gone on long enough. Hope you enjoyed this video.
Thanks for being with us.
Leave
Thank you for
below.
watching.
Let us know.
Yeah, leave us a comment and let us know what you thought. If there's any questions or thoughts or revelations or anything else that you would like to share, we would love to hear it.
And we'd love to hear how, if you've tried leaning back, has that worked for you? What does it feel like to lean back?
Yes, and also my article, The 9 Dangers of Leaning Back, it's actually it's had quite a few shares. I think it's resonated with a lot of people. I'll leave a link to that below in case you're interested, because I go into a lot more depth, even more than here, in a different way.
Yes.
Because when we converse, we go
in different directions.
But if you want to learn more, go to that article and read it. I've recently updated it again because I like to do that. But anyway.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this little chat. I know we go off on tangents a lot, and maybe we'll go to explore some of those other areas a bit more later on.
Yes, if people are interested.
All right, let us know. That is all from us. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk to you guys soon.